Hey there YouTube, this is Kelta 3007. Just making another update vlog on my project Sanctity Lost. I figured I should let you know a little bit about my inspiration for this project and my progress so far. Well, I took a lot of inspiration for this game from StarCraft and Half-Life 2. Actually, I took inspirations from a lot of other games, specifically StarCraft, Half-Life 2, and Unreal Tournament 3. I'm a pretty big fan of StarCraft. I have the first one and the second one. As soon as I could afford it, I ran out there and bought it. I think it's a pretty awesome game. If you've noticed, if you've ever played StarCraft, it is an RTS, a real-time strategy game, and it has an isometric camera, which means the view is from the top down. And because of this, the characters are like real, almost tiny little dots on your map, and obviously they wouldn't need to spend a lot of time and resources texturing their characters, creating normal maps or whatever. So it's kind of like low poly and low texture, and you really notice this when you play one of the third-person mods they have, and you can see that the texture is not as strong. But they also have their cinematic versions, which they use for in-game cinematics, cutscenes, and the portrait versions, which is specifically what I'm about to talk about. The cinematic versions and the portrait versions are mostly the same version, but the portrait versions are cut off because on the portrait you only see the head or the face and maybe a little bit of the torso, shoulders. So they cut that part off, but the cinematic versions are like definitely very high poly and very realistic looking, which is pretty awesome. StarCraft being an RTS, when you click on a unit, they have a portrait as part of the HUD, the heads-up display, and the unit's portrait appears, the face, and he responds to you. In the single player, the campaign mode, they have little, not cutscenes, but one of the characters you're playing with might want to talk to you, or another character might want to talk to you, and another portrait box slides on the HUD on the screen, and you see the characters. His character delivers this line. He talks to the player. So I figured I would incorporate this into my game because I didn't want to use face effect for my project because I had some negative feedback, and when I tried it, it didn't work effectively. It wasn't effective enough. So I created my own. I created separate versions of my characters. I have the in-game, actually not low poly. It's the same mesh, just different joints set up. One has a face set up, and the other one is just for gameplay. Doesn't have a face set up, so can't talk. It won't talk. And has no facial animation. I learned how to create a character portrait using for my characters, and I have my in-game version, which is used for gameplay and in-game cinematics. I do not have cutscenes. I don't want to have cutscenes in my game, or I don't think I need them, having this other ability, because I create an in-game version of my characters, and I create the cinematic version, and I try to put a little bit more detail on my cinematic version. I'm going to explain what I mean by this. Coming to the second game, I took inspiration from Unreal Tournament 3. I'm using UDK, Unreal Development Kit, which is the free version of the Unreal Engine, to create my game, and they do have some assets from Unreal Tournament 3 in UDK, just so the player can use those as references. I also bought I also have Unreal Tournament, the game itself, so I looked at the editor, which has more assets than UDK has. And I noticed that for their in-game cinematics version of their characters, they do have cutscenes, so they have like a full body mesh with facial animation, which I didn't want to go into because I think it's too much trouble animating a character, the body and then the face, just for cutscenes. So I took a look at the in-game mesh, the actual character you play in game, and then I looked at the cinematic version for the campaign mode, and I noticed that the cinematic version has a little bit more detail than the in-game version, even if they have the same textures and the same number of polys, the base mesh. For example, a character with spiky hair, I think it's Ripper, um, I saw in there. His low poly mesh, he just has a block of one poly on his head as the hair, and they textured it like hair, which is convincing if you're playing in game, because the character is it's a first person shooter, but the character is running around and jumping and shooting, and he's not for the in game. When you're playing in game, the camera doesn't zoom into the face, so you wouldn't even notice this. But in the cinematic version, seeing as they're going to be using him, using that version in the in-game cutscenes and all of that, the camera might zoom into the face when the character is talking, them to have more detail. So what they did, they actually went in there and put hair planes for the hair, so you can actually see the individual strands of hair. They put hair planes with an alpha, and it looks like actual hair. So I used that, I incorporated that into my game. My characters, the in-game versions, I just put a block of hair and texture it like hair, which looks convincing for the game version. But for my portrait box characters, I have actual strand of hair there. So when the character pops on the portrait, it looks more detailed. Another example was I had another character with ear studs on, diamond ear studs. For his in-game version, I didn't want to go ahead and add more geometry, add a lot of geometry to my character. The idea of doing this is to save, I guess, memory, because if you have a character with all those strands of hair and ears to additional geometry added on as a player character, it kind of it uses more memory because he has more polygons. So instead of putting ear studs in the gameplay version, I just went ahead and used a normal map and painted earrings on his ear. So when you come across this character, either you're fighting him or if it's just like an in-game cinematic, the gameplay character, you can see the ear stud shining. If it turns around, you can't really see it in 3D because it's just a normal map, but I mean you can see the illusion of an earring, an ear stud there. But for its high poly version, I modeled actual ear studs and put them up there, so when it pops up on the portrait and it's talking to you, even if it doesn't turn around, you can see the ear stud from the front view in all three. I mean, you can see it in 3D. So if you walk to the character in game and it's about to deliver a line to you, you see the character standing in front of you. You know, you can see him, you can see his little ear studs, which might just be like giving off light, like reflecting light and all of that. But seeing as it's a third-person game, the camera is not as close as even a first-person game. But when the portrait box pops up and you see him there, then you can see all the detail. It looks more convincing. So I thought that was pretty cool. I also took some inspiration from Half-Life 2, as I mentioned earlier. As I mentioned before, I don't have cutscenes. I'm using just regular in-game cinematics and my portrait box to communicate to the player, to have my characters communicate to the players. But I do have animation sequences, in-game cinematics. And I noticed by watching the Half-Life 2 commentary, Half-Life 2 episode 1 and 2, by watching the commentaries, they use different tactics to get the player to look to see their animation sequences. For example, I guess there was one level in the Citadel, I believe. The player is running on a little walkway thing, and one of these troopers is getting shot and thrown off a balcony up high. And usually the player is just running straight up, he's not looking there. In order to get the player to look there, they had a ship fly or crash through the wall and then fly right by the player. So the player turns around and looks at the ship and sees the action going on, and the ship crashes. So I used that. I took that as an inspiration, and in my game, when something is going on, I try to have something occur that will have the player look at that direction. For example, if you look at my, I think I have a video up called Warehouse District Animation Sequences. If you take a look at that, I have the player running along not a corridor, but an outdoor corridor kind of thing, and there are like gates to his left. You can see through the gates, obviously. And as the player is walking down, he's looking forward. There are certain animations going through. The player is actually chasing another character, and that character is running on the other side of the fence. And each time the character gets to a gate, he sees the other character and he delivers a line to him. But in order to get the player to look at that direction, I use certain tricks, I guess you call it that. For example, the first gate you get to, there's the player's friend has been kidnapped by this guy he's chasing, and he's being dragged into an APC. That'll be an armored personnel character, armored personnel carrier, for those of you non-military types. So he's running by, and the APC actually, I went ahead and put a sound cue to get the player to look, the sound cue of the APC revving and then driving off. So when the player spawns and is moving forward, the APC revs and it turns to his left, and he sees the guy being dragged in there, and then he sees the boss character is chasing, and then the boss character delivers his line. So that was I believe that's going to be effective when I finally have this game finished, to get the players to look at these interesting animation sequences. I'm going to put a little example at the end of this video of what I'm talking about. It's a little animation sequence I just completed. I'm still working on it. I don't have the portrait side done yet. The character is being spoken to by another character, but I haven't put the portrait part in. But you see a little, I guess, hilarious animated sequence going on in the background as the guy is talking to him. Well, I think that's gonna be it for now. Stay tuned for my next vlog. I hope this project becomes a success. I hope I'm able to finish this project at least sometime this year. I hope it's something you guys will enjoy. What else was I gonna say? Oh yeah, progress. I forgot this part. I'm sorry. I've made about 3 maps now, or 4, 2 indoors and 2 outdoor maps. I learned how to make terrains in my 3D application, as opposed to using the landscape editor, which I think is good, but it's for it works for people that really know how to use it, people that are very good at using it, and I'm not. So once again, thanks for tuning in. Just stay tuned, and I should have another vlog coming in soon. I also have some update videos, probably not of me talking, but have fun, guys. Hope to see you soon. Bye.